In the year 2063, the entire planet Earth was submerged under water due to humanity's destruction of nature. Only 2 villages managed to survive the flood, and they were constantly at war over land and resources. In the middle of the ocean, between the continents, there was a military outpost known as the Guardian. 4 soldiers were stationed there. After 2 years of service, their term had officially ended 3 months earlier, but no replacement team had arrived. They were forced to remain at their post to continue guarding it. As time passed, their food supplies began to run out. 2 of the soldiers, Cassidy and Sullivan, decided to go fishing. Despite the raging storm, they managed to catch a good amount of fish. Meanwhile, the commander noticed the storm intensifying and ordered Baines to check the explosive traps securing the base. But the rising waves put pressure on the pipes, causing leaks. Baines tried to fix them, but his hand got stuck between the pipes, and he nearly drowned before escaping just in time. The waves grew so massive that they swept away all the fish they had caught. Sullivan tried fishing again, but the storm was too strong, it became too dangerous, so he rushed back to shelter inside the base. When the storm got even worse, the whole crew hid inside the building. Suddenly, a huge wave struck the structure, shaking it violently. But despite everything, the building managed to stay standing. The next morning, the team gathered for breakfast and decided to cut down on food and water consumption. Then they noticed that the fish they'd caught were gone. Baines got furious, thinking Sullivan was responsible. Sullivan snapped back, accusing Baines of taking his tools without permission to fix the pipes. The 2 started fighting until the commander stepped in, ordering them to calm down and focus on repairing the storm damage instead of arguing. But tensions didn't stop there. Baines confronted the commander, demanding that he contact headquarters and request a replacement crew immediately. The commander told him the telegraph could only send preset messages, daily status reports. After breakfast, he went to the communications room and sent the usual report. Sullivan wrote that there was nothing new, and headquarters replied with the same message. Later, Sullivan was chatting with the commander outside, joking around, when he looked through his binoculars and spotted something unexpected, a ship approaching. Cassidy confirmed it on the radar. Sullivan was thrilled, thinking it was the replacement crew finally arriving. But the commander felt uneasy and told everyone to be ready, the ship could be hostile. Cassidy tried to contact the vessel, but there was no response. The commander decided to wait before giving the order to destroy it. He then told Sullivan to take the boat and inspect the ship up close, handing him a pistol in case of danger. Sullivan set out, called out to anyone on board, but no one answered. He climbed aboard with his gun drawn and began to explore. Everything was covered in grime, the radio was dead, and food supplies were still untouched in storage. The commander tried to reach Sullivan through the radio, but he didn't respond, because he'd found something shocking, 4 duffel bags labeled with their names. That meant the ship had been carrying their replacement team, but something terrible had happened to them. They weren't going home. Assuming the ship was hostile, the commander prepared to destroy it. He ordered Cassidy to hand over the activation key for the explosive traps. She hesitated but finally obeyed after he reminded her of protocol. He inserted both his and Cassidy's keys into the system, started typing the password to arm the explosives, but before detonating, he tried one last time to contact Sullivan. Luckily, this time Sullivan responded, so the commander immediately aborted the detonation. Cassidy demanded her key back, but the commander refused, reminding her that she had disobeyed him earlier. Sullivan returned from the ship, and the commander questioned him about everything he saw. After reporting, Sullivan went to talk privately with Cassidy. A few hours later, the entire crew boarded the mysterious ship. Each of them took a shower, and then Baines gathered them to share his findings. He explained that the ship had been their only possible way home, but its engine hadn't worked for months. Sullivan wanted to radio headquarters to report what happened, but the commander refused, insisting they wait until they understood the full situation. His behavior made the rest of the crew uneasy, especially since he now held both security keys. The commander went through the ship's navigation logs and copied all the coordinates onto a piece of paper to compare them with the map once they got back to base. After finishing their inspection, the crew returned to their outpost once again, but the tension among them was stronger than ever. We see Sullivan and Cassidy talking together about what the world has become, especially since they've been stationed at the Guardian for 2 years. Sullivan tells Cassidy that he secretly sent a message behind the commander's back and that he's waiting for the base's reply the next day. The following morning, the commander notices all his soldiers sitting around the telegraph machine, and he starts to suspect something. Baines ends up confessing everything, saving the commander the trouble of figuring it out himself. Furious, the commander scolds them harshly for what they did. At that moment, a reply finally comes from the base, and everyone gathers, excited to hear what it says. But they're shocked. The message Sullivan sent the day before is the exact same one that just came from the base. That meant they had lost contact with headquarters a long time ago, and the computer had simply been resending Sullivan's daily report that said, "No updates." Days go by. The commander keeps checking the ship's coordinates on the map, while Baines secretly sneaks to the ship from time to time. One day, Sullivan catches him coming back and asks what he was doing there, but Baines refuses to answer. Later, Sullivan takes him aside, and they sit down to have a drink. Baines starts talking about his family, the one waiting for him back home, if home even still exists. Suddenly, he mentions that he thinks he can fix the ship. Sullivan is thrilled when he hears that, because he's been desperate to leave this place. He runs to Cassidy and tells her the plan, asking her to escape with him so they can start a new life together. But Cassidy hesitates. She doesn't believe Baines can actually repair the ship. The next day, Sullivan sneaks back to the ship with Baines, and together they start working on the repairs. After a long effort, they actually manage to get it running. But as soon as they step out, they find the commander waiting for them. He orders Sullivan and Baines to dismantle the ship immediately, saying he'll use the parts to fix the Guardian's systems. He also tells them they're not leaving, that staying here is their military duty, even if their service has ended and the replacement crew is dead. Sullivan objects, saying he doesn't want to die here like the others. But Cassidy doesn't take his side, she stays neutral. The commander tells them he doesn't care what they think and orders them again to take the ship apart and repair the Guardian, threatening them with his gun until they comply. Later, Cassidy goes to talk to the commander privately, while Sullivan and Baines discuss rebelling against him and escaping from the Guardian. But suddenly, the commander walks in and says Cassidy managed to convince him of something. He explains that since they've lost contact with the base, someone has to go there directly to re-establish communication and find out what's going on. 2 of them will stay at the Guardian, and the other 2 will take the ship to the base. The commander decides he'll stay, and Cassidy volunteers to remain with him, meaning Sullivan and Baines are the ones who'll sail away. Baines is overjoyed to finally be leaving that cursed place, but Sullivan is heartbroken that he has to leave the woman he loves. He meets with Cassidy in private, begging her to come with him, even if it means disobeying the commander's orders. He even offers to let her take Baines's place, or to stay behind himself if she escapes instead. But Cassidy's reaction is cold and shocking. She tells Sullivan she doesn't love him, that she only used him to satisfy her own desires, nothing more. Sullivan leaves her room completely shattered, while Cassidy breaks down crying right after. That night, Sullivan and Baines pack their things, ready to depart. The commander meets Sullivan and gives him a message to deliver to headquarters. Sullivan asks him to come along, but the commander refuses, saying someone has to stay behind to monitor the explosive traps. After they leave, the commander continues tracking the ship's route and makes a terrifying discovery. The previous cruise ship had actually drifted away from the Guardian from the very beginning. It didn't make any sense. He goes to tell Cassidy, but when he sees her, he gets a strange feeling and decides not to say anything. The next morning, the crew wakes up to the sound of alarms. Another ship has appeared on the radar. The soldiers rush to their defensive positions, and Cassidy tries to contact the ship, but there's no response. This time, the commander refuses to send anyone to investigate, and orders them to destroy it. They fire the first missile, but it misses the target. At that moment, Cassidy realized their ship was gone, and as soon as the fog cleared, they spotted it again. She ran toward them to stop them from destroying it, but the commander appeared, threatening them with his gun. He told them he had dismantled the ship the night before and ordered them to destroy it. To prove he wasn't joking, he fired a shot into the air. Baines refused to destroy the ship, so the commander shot at his ear. At that moment, Sullivan aimed the cannon at the ship and destroyed it before the commander could kill them all. Baines tried to attack the commander, but Cassidy intervened and hit the commander on the head with a fire extinguisher. Afterward, Sullivan and Cassidy locked the commander in the storage room. Cassidy was furious with him, and even Sullivan wanted to kill him. In a fit of rage, he struck someone who stood in his way, but Cassidy managed to calm him down. Baines went to drink while crying over the supplies he had prepared. Cassidy told him the commander needed an iodine bath, but he must stay in the storage, and she declared that he had disobeyed their military orders. Sullivan said he would search all the telegraph channels until someone replied. Cassidy took the opportunity to apologize to him, explaining that she hadn't meant to hurt him when she said she didn't love him, she just wanted him to leave the Guardian by any means. She said it was the only way to make him go, but Sullivan was hesitant to accept her apology. Later, Sullivan took some food and went to the commander in the storage room to ask why he dismantled their ship. The commander explained that the ship had left the base 3 months ago as scheduled, but something caused it to drift away from the Guardian. This meant there was a traitor among them trying to exploit the explosive traps and the outpost for personal gain. Sullivan didn't believe him and left the storage, closing the door behind him. Sullivan spent the rest of the day sending distress messages through every telegraph channel, drinking to forget what had happened. Suddenly, he lost control and began destroying everything around him. That night, Cassidy came to him and spoke with him, showing him a childhood photo of herself with her family, explaining that her family had been killed by enemies. The next day, Sullivan saw her sleeping in the communications room when he suddenly attacked Cassidy, attempting to assault her. She pushed him away, and Baines intervened, stopping him, though he stole the key from her. Cassidy then went to Sullivan to explain what had happened. At that moment, they heard Baines over the microphone saying he would detonate the explosive traps. They ran quickly to the control room. Sullivan tried to calm Baines down, reminding him of his family. Baines began to cry and stepped away from the control panel, allowing Cassidy to approach and take the keys. Baines admitted he had forgotten the last number of the password. Sullivan then decided to remove the commander from the storage, but Baines told them he had gone in to kill the commander and found him missing. The storage window was open, indicating that the commander had committed suicide by jumping out. Sullivan and Cassidy went to the storage and confirmed that Baines was telling the truth. After the commander's death, Sullivan opened the message he had prepared for the base and was surprised to find that it asked them to extend his command period, meaning he had no reason to commit suicide. Later, Cassidy told Sullivan that Baines had started taking care of his workshop again, showing signs of improvement. She explained that he hadn't seen his son in a long time, which was why he had been drinking excessively and having violent outbursts. Sullivan forgave Baines for what he had done. Baines then prepared his boat to go fishing, and Cassidy decided to go with him to help. Sullivan gave Cassidy a gun to use in case of emergency, and Cassidy kissed him quickly before they set off. Sullivan also tried fishing from the outpost, and when he pulled in his net, he found the commander's body. After examining it, he confirmed the commander had been killed by a blow to the head, proving that the commander had been right. There was a traitor among them. Sullivan searched through the crew's files and opened the map the commander had used, confirming that the ship had deliberately drifted off course. He realized that someone from the crew had dismantled the lighthouse and used the boat with them to mislead the ship. Once the ship had taken the bait and moved away from the Guardian, the traitor killed the entire crew and left the ship adrift at sea. Hours later, Cassidy returned alone and claimed that Baines had accidentally fallen from the boat and died. Sullivan realized she was the traitor who had killed him, but he treated her fairly because he was afraid to confront her. The next morning, Cassidy woke up alone in bed. Sullivan contacted her over the radio, telling her he knew she had killed the entire team and that she was a spy for the enemy. He also warned that he would not let her control the explosive traps. Cassidy realized she had lost the keys and ran to the control room, where she found Sullivan standing, ready to detonate the explosives remotely. Cassidy aimed her weapon at him, explaining that people in her homeland were suffering and that she hadn't intended to lie to him. It was the only way. Sullivan didn't believe her and pressed the detonation button. But the explosives didn't go off. On the detonation screen appeared a funny message Baines used to repeat, showing that he had disabled the explosives to prevent them from being used destructively. In the end, Cassidy and Sullivan talked things through, resolved all their conflicts, and agreed to protect the Guardian for the rest of their lives. And that brings us to the end of our movie. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.